What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? The camera flashes were blinding, and the questions shouted by reporters hit harder than any punch he'd ever taken in business. Elon Musk stood at the edge of the stage, staring at a screen behind him that had just glitched, frozen mid-presentation, right as he was unveiling what was supposed to be the biggest innovation of his lifetime. A breakthrough that could eliminate traffic forever, that could give Americans back years of their lives lost to gridlock, and now, here he was, watching it all unravel. The screen buzzed, the silence from the crowd grew heavier. "Is this a joke?" one investor shouted. Another walked out. For a moment, Elon didn't breathe. He knew what they were thinking. Another hype train, derailed. Another moonshot promise, half fulfilled. But this wasn't a drill. This wasn't vaporware. He had seen it work. The tunnel system beneath the city. Powered by AI, immune to weather, congestion, and human error, had worked flawlessly in every test. Except this one. The live one. The one that mattered. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? In that moment, Elon wasn't thinking about rockets or headlines. He wasn't thinking about Tesla stock or Twitter memes. He was thinking about the first time he got stuck in traffic in Los Angeles after moving from South Africa, windows rolled down, sweat dripping, watching the clock tick while knowing he was missing a meeting that could change his future. He was thinking about the millions of Americans who woke up 2 hours early every day just to inch forward in lines of metal boxes. He was thinking about his mother, May, who once said, "If you don't like the world you live in, build a better one." But now, on the world stage, as the world's most watched innovator, he was failing to do just that. A ripple of gasps moved through the audience as the screen finally cut to black. Elon stepped back. The silence was deafening. Somewhere in the back, someone laughed. Not with him, at him. It wasn't the first time. But something about this moment felt heavier. It wasn't just the tech failing. It was the feeling of being on the verge of something that could save people time, money, sanity, and watching it slip away. He walked off the stage without a word, past security, past his assistant's concerned glances, and into a back room lined with blueprints and half-empty Red Bull cans. He slammed the door. The team stared. Nobody knew what to say. Sarah, his closest advisor and longest friend since his first PayPal pitch days, stepped forward and said quietly, "We've got one shot left." Elon nodded. It was already in motion. Deep beneath the city, the emergency test loop had activated the second the main one failed. They had planned for redundancy. "Always do," he told the team. But even so, this wasn't the win they needed. It wasn't the public demonstration. It wasn't the final proof. It was private. Quiet. And useless if nobody believed it. He sat down, elbows on knees, eyes locked on the floor. "We built the future," he muttered. "But nobody's going to see it." In that moment, 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. The nights sleeping on the factory floor. The journalists calling him crazy. The workers who had sacrificed holidays, birthdays, and sleep for this moment. All of it could vanish. All of it could become another "what if." He hated that phrase. What if? No. Not again. Not this time. His fingers curled into fists. "We're not done," he said. Not by a long shot. Across the room, screens flickered back to life. A technician yelled from the control room, "Secondary loop is running. Zero lag. Systems green." Elon stood up. No time to feel sorry for himself. Not his style. Never had been. He paced the room, eyes darting to the feed. Cars were gliding through the underground system at over 120 miles per hour, no stops, no honks, no crashes. Smooth. Seamless. Almost too perfect. We need them to see this, he said. We need to prove it, live, no edits, no cuts. Sarah nodded. We leaked the backup test. Let them decide for themselves. Elon raised an eyebrow. Risky. So is doing nothing, she said. Let's go rogue. He laughed, the first real sound he'd made in hours. You always knew how to push me, he said. She shrugged. It's what friends are for. Minutes later, the team huddled around as the feed was uploaded to a private link and shared through unofficial social channels. Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, well, X now, flooded with views. Millions. Then tens of millions. Comments poured in. Wait, this is real. Are we watching the future? Why are we not funding this? The tide began to turn. Not by force. Not by press release. But by raw proof. Elon didn't smile. Not yet. It wasn't enough. Not until the world truly saw what he saw. A world without traffic. A world where a single mom in Atlanta could get home in 10 minutes instead of 2 hours. Where a nurse in Chicago didn't have to wake up at 4:30 just to be on time. Where people didn't measure their life in delays and dead time but in minutes that actually mattered. The screen flashed again. Viral engagement peaking. Elon watched quietly. Not as a billionaire. Not as a tech god. Just as a builder. A man who hated wasting time. A man who knew time was the one thing you couldn't invent more of. And maybe, just maybe, he'd found a way to give people a little of theirs back. He remembered the sound of silence more than the sound of machines. That was the thing about his childhood, when he wasn't being bullied at school or lost in his own head, he was chasing silence, the kind that hummed only in the background of dreams. In Pretoria, South Africa, before the fame and the fortune and the spectacle, Elon Musk was just a boy who didn't belong. He didn't fit into conversations, didn't care about sports, didn't want what the other kids wanted. While they talked about rugby, he read encyclopedias cover to cover. When they mocked his ideas, he built computers from salvage. His bedroom was his escape, walls lined with books on engineering, physics, and science fiction, a small window that opened not to the backyard, but to entire galaxies in his mind. But it was also a place of pain. His father, Elon Musk, was a brilliant man in his own right, an engineer, pilot, sailor, but also a man full of contradictions. Elon remembered the sharpness in his father's tone, the cold logic, the lack of warmth. There were lessons in that house, but they came wrapped in thorns. And while Errol taught him how things worked, it was his mother, May, who taught him why they mattered. May Musk, a model and dietitian, had a way of filling silence with courage. She was elegance and resilience, a single mother at times, holding the family together while building her own career. She told Elon, over and over, no one's coming to save you. So save yourself, and build something while you're at it. That line stayed with him, especially on nights when the world said no. Especially in the early days in Canada, when he slept on a mattress on the floor, eating oranges and peanut butter, struggling through classes at Queen's University. He wasn't a genius then. Not to anyone else. Just a scrappy immigrant kid with a funny accent and big eyes, full of impossible dreams. But inside, there was a fire that didn't die. The first time he saw a traffic jam in Toronto, he was amazed that people put up with it. Rows of cars, burning gas and time, people inching forward like robots in a system nobody questioned. That's when it started. The itch. The vision. What if roads weren't flat? What if cars could go underground? What if you could rewrite transportation the same way you rewrote computer code? He didn't say anything out loud back then, he knew better. The world wasn't ready for his ideas. But he wrote them down, page after page of sketches, models, even rudimentary tunnel designs. While others were dreaming of the weekend, Elon was dreaming of revolution. At the University of Pennsylvania, that fire sharpened. He double majored in physics and economics, not because he wanted a job, but because he wanted tools. Physics gave him truth. Economics gave him leverage. But his true education came in late-night conversations with his roommates, especially Sarah, bright, opinionated, funny, a mechanical engineering student who called him out on his nonsense but always leaned in when he talked about the future. Sarah wasn't just a friend. She was one of the few who didn't treat him like a curiosity. She saw the weight he carried, the pressure to prove himself, to become someone worthy of his mother's sacrifices and beyond his father's shadow. She also knew he didn't sleep much. She once found him at 3 a.m. in the basement of their dorm, surrounded by scraps of metal, building what he swore would be the first clean energy commuter pod. "Elon," she had said, half awake, "you know nobody asked you to do this, right?" And he had looked up with those fire-lit eyes and said, "But they will." It was always like that with him, urgency, obsession, like he was racing against something invisible. He didn't fear failure. He feared irrelevance. After selling Zip2 and PayPal, when the money came and the spotlight followed, most people would have coasted. But Elon couldn't sit still. SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City, they weren't distractions. They were puzzle pieces. Every problem he solved opened the door to the next one. And through it all, traffic was always there, crawling in the back of his mind like a bug in the system. Because it wasn't just about cars. It was about time. People were wasting their lives behind the wheel, breathing smog, missing dinners, showing up late to dreams. The system was broken, and nobody seemed to care. So he cared enough for everyone. In Los Angeles, the problem hit a personal nerve. After launching Tesla and moving his operations west, Elon found himself stuck in traffic on the 405. It was supposed to be a 20-minute drive. It took 90. He sat behind the wheel, tapping his fingers, watching the minutes evaporate. And in that moment, he snapped. "I'm going to build a tunnel," he said. His assistant laughed. But Elon wasn't joking. That was how the Boring Company was born, not in a boardroom, but in the gridlock of wasted time. He assembled a small team, bought a tunneling machine, and started digging. People called it a joke. A billionaire's vanity project. But he didn't care. He saw what they didn't. A city beneath the city. A system where cars moved like blood cells in arteries, fast, silent, frictionless. No honking, no gridlock, no fumes. Just movement. Freedom. The press mocked him. Experts said it couldn't scale. Sarah, now head of advanced systems, stood by him. "We've done harder," she said. And they had. Rockets that landed themselves. Cars that drove without drivers. But this felt different. More intimate. More human. Because it wasn't about Mars or Mars colonies. It was about the people stuck in traffic, wasting their lives on Earth. Elon never forgot the letters they sent. The woman in Phoenix who missed her mother's final moments because of an accident delay. The single father in Houston who drove 3 hours to see his kids every weekend. The EMT who begged him to make something that would let ambulances move faster. These weren't customers. They were the reason. And with every test, every prototype, every sleepless night, he thought of them. Thought of how much it would mean to give them a little time back. But the journey wasn't smooth. At one point, the entire system failed during a high-stakes test in Nevada. The tunnels collapsed. No one was hurt, but the headlines screamed disaster. Investors panicked. Engineers walked. Elon considered shutting it all down. That night, he walked through the tunnel alone, flashlight in hand, dust in his lungs, thinking about everything he'd built, and everything he hadn't yet. Then he got a text from Sarah, "One failure doesn't end a revolution." And she was right. He had always been building towards something bigger than himself. Not fame. Not wealth. A world that worked better. A world where time wasn't stolen. So he rebuilt. Smarter this time. Deeper tunnels. Better AI. Redundancy built into every mile. He didn't talk to the press. Didn't tweet. Just worked. Underground. In silence. The same silence he had chased as a boy. And now, after all the heartbreak, all the tests, all the doubt, he stood on the edge of bringing it to the world. If only it would work when it mattered most. But he hadn't come this far to give up. Not now. Not after everything. Not after everyone. The tunnel walls were shaking. Not from an earthquake or some act of God, but from something far more man-made, doubt. It started with a whisper, an uneasy murmur among the engineers, technicians, and managers. A glitch in the power routing system. A 0.06-second delay in one of the pod transitions. A camera feed that went dark for 3 frames. Minor things, things no regular commuter would ever notice, but to Elon, every flaw was a crack in the dam. He had seen what happened when people lost faith in a vision. He knew what it felt like when confidence drained out of a team like air from a punctured suit in space. They were on the cusp. So close. One more successful test, one more perfect run, and they could roll out the traffic-free model in Los Angeles, their first major metro partner. But under the surface, the cracks were spreading. Elon walked into the operations center at 4:17 a.m., unshaven, still wearing yesterday's shirt. His eyes scanned the monitors. "Talk to me," he said. A young engineer named Marcus cleared his throat. "We've got a signal lag in Tunnel 4. AI's overcorrecting by 0.4% every loop cycle. It's triggering false flags on safety." Elon frowned. "Why didn't this get flagged yesterday?" Marcus looked uncomfortable. "It did. But Jenna thought it was a software-side issue. She rerouted the input." Elon turned toward Jenna. She didn't look up. "We were prepping for the city council ride-along. I thought the reroute would hold." Elon's voice didn't rise. It never did when he was angry. It just got colder. "Hope is not a system," he said. That sentence hit hard. Jenna nodded without arguing. Elon paced. A delay that small could mean nothing. Or it could mean a critical flaw in the AI's ability to adapt to real-world unpredictability. One day, it's a timing bug. The next, it's a passenger injured. The weight of human lives rested on these lines of code. There was no room for almost. Sarah entered the room a moment later, holding her tablet and a coffee that had gone cold hours ago. "Regulators want to move the ride along up to tomorrow. They think we're stalling." Elon gave her a long look. "Then we can't stall. Triple-check every loop. Run diagnostics. If we find even one more bug, we cancel the run. That'll kill the contract," she said. "So we're killing someone," he replied. The tension hung heavy. Elon hated this part, not the work, not the stress, but the balancing act of progress versus perfection. Every day they waited, they lost momentum. But every mistake risked everything. Meanwhile, outside the company, pressure was mounting. The media had been unrelenting since the failed live demo. Headlines calling the project vaporware. Editorials accusing Elon of being distracted, stretched too thin between Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and now traffic tunnels. Even late-night comedians were piling on, calling it Elon's fancy dirt ride. Internally, the board was beginning to lose patience. A secret email thread had leaked, investors concerned about ROI, angry about missed milestones, even suggesting that Sarah be replaced with a more traditional operations lead. Elon didn't care about ego, but replacing Sarah? That wasn't happening. She had been there since the beginning, through every crash, every test, every win. He trusted her more than anyone. Still, the idea that people were circling her like vultures made his blood boil. And worse, there was something deeper gnawing at him, something he hadn't told anyone yet. The prototype pod had failed a closed-door safety test 2 days ago. Just a microfracture in the frame, one that might never happen again. But what if it did? What if the high-speed pods, packed with commuters, suddenly destabilized? The scenario played out in his nightmares: sparks, screaming, metal crumpling underground with no way out. He couldn't let it happen. Not on his watch. Not when so many people were counting on this to be different, to be better than what they had. That night, he stayed in the test tunnel. Alone. Just him, the hum of the generators, and the soft glow of the track lights. He walked the length of it in silence, running his fingers along the walls, trying to feel something. Certainty. Conviction. Instead, all he felt was weight. He sat on a crate at the midpoint of the tunnel, where the pods would accelerate to full speed. He closed his eyes and let his thoughts wander, to his sons, to May, to every letter he'd read from people desperate for this system to work. That's when his phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "We have a problem. Not tech. People." Elon stood up fast. Back in the control room, Sarah met him with a file. Inside were internal chat logs from 2 senior engineers, Rachel and Dev, frustrated with delays. Talking about taking an offer from a competitor in Boston working on autonomous aerial transit. But worse, they had access to key schematics. If they jumped ship, the leak could cost them the entire system. "Can we talk to them?" Elon asked. Sarah nodded. "They're still here. Waiting." The meeting was tense. Elon sat across from them in the glass conference room, calm but unblinking. Rachel spoke first. "We believe in the mission. We just don't believe in the direction anymore." Dev added, "Too much pressure. No margin for error. And no ownership. We're just executing, not innovating." Elon listened, then leaned forward. "You think I don't feel pressure? I've got satellites falling out of the sky, car factories on fire, and a public that thinks I'm a meme with a god complex. But this? This tunnel? This is the most human thing I've ever built. Because it's not about rockets or planets. It's about people. Families. Kids late to school. Moms missing job interviews. Paramedics caught in traffic. You want ownership? Take it. Tell me how to fix this system. Right now. Let's build it better, together." Silence followed. Rachel looked at Dev. Then back at Elon. "You're serious?" "Always," Elon said. They stayed. But not everyone did. Over the next 48 hours, 3 engineers resigned. 2 more went dark, likely interviewing elsewhere. The pressure was fracturing the team. And time was running out. Meanwhile, city regulators were preparing to issue an ultimatum: prove the system worked, safely, or lose the permit. Sarah pulled Elon aside. "We're hitting the climax," she said. "This is it." Elon looked tired. "We're not ready." "We'll never be ready," she replied. "That's the point. We go forward anyway." Elon thought of the tunnel again. The silence. The future waiting beneath their feet. "Then we push," he said. "No more delays. We ride or we fall." The next morning, as the sun rose over Los Angeles, a sleek white pod emerged from the test tunnel and slid onto the underground track. Inside were 2 city council members, a camera crew, and Elon himself. He didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He just stared ahead as the pod began to move, slowly at first, then faster, faster, until the walls blurred and the tunnel swallowed them whole. The ride was smooth. Silent. The AI made adjustments in real time, dodging obstacles that didn't exist, ready for ones that might. The passengers were in awe. When they emerged minutes later on the other side of the city, faces lit by sunrise, there was a pause. Then applause. Cameras flashed. The councilwoman leaned in and said, "You just bought yourself another 6 months." But Elon wasn't smiling. He felt something was off. The diagnostics showed a power surge during the final acceleration. Barely registered. A blip. But he saw it. And he knew what came next. The rain started just before dawn, a soft hiss that blanketed Los Angeles in gray. From the rooftop of the Tunnel Operations Center, the city looked peaceful, unbothered, unaware of the storm building underneath. Elon stood alone under the awning, watching the sky darken. He wasn't afraid of storms, he liked them. They reminded him of pressure, of friction, of the forces that shaped the earth and shaped him too. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Sarah again. She had barely slept in 3 days, pushing through simulations, regulatory reports, and a new AI update they called Mercury, a machine learning upgrade designed to predict human behavior in complex traffic scenarios. But Mercury wasn't ready. It passed 92% of the simulations. Elon needed 100%. Still, they were out of time. The public had seen the demo, the council had given them 6 months, and the press was holding its breath, waiting for another misstep. There was no more room for theory. It was time for the real thing. The pilot city had been chosen, Austin, Texas. Not just because of Tesla's new gigafactory, but because the traffic there had become unbearable, a daily war zone of pickups, electric sedans, and semi-trucks clogging the arteries of a booming city that had grown faster than its infrastructure could handle. Elon had spent time there recently, walking the streets in disguise, hood pulled over his head, sunglasses at night, watching how people moved, how they waited, how they boiled with frustration behind their windshields. He watched a mother with 3 kids fall asleep in a car during a 2-hour traffic jam. He watched a rideshare driver break down and cry after missing the 3rd airport run in a row. He didn't just read reports. He felt them. That's why Austin was perfect. If it could work there, it could work anywhere. The tunnel team shipped out in staggered deployments. Engineers, electricians, AI experts, communications leads, and urban planners. All packed into cargo flights and caravans heading to a massive underground staging site on the outskirts of the city. Elon flew separately. Alone. No private jet entourage, no champagne. Just him, a laptop, a tablet full of diagnostics, and a black backpack stuffed with cables, tools, and an old notebook full of handwritten tunnel sketches from his 20s. When the plane landed, the Texas heat hit him like a furnace. He didn't flinch. He stepped off the tarmac and went straight to the site, a sprawling network of temporary structures surrounding the mouth of what looked like a canyon-sized sinkhole, except it wasn't. It was the beginning. The tunnel curved down into the earth like a secret artery, lit by soft blue LEDs and flanked by magnetic tracks. The pods weren't operational yet, but the infrastructure was in place. Elon walked the track, boots crunching on gravel, light bouncing off his face. Around him, workers were welding, soldering, connecting wires and testing sensors. Sarah met him halfway down the incline. She looked exhausted, sunburnt, but alert. "You picked a hell of a place," she said. Elon just nodded. "We ready?" she asked. He didn't answer. Just pulled out his tablet and started scanning the readings. Most were green. A few orange. None red. That was good. But it wasn't perfect. She watched him in silence for a moment, then said, "You haven't slept in 3 days." "Neither have you," he replied. "Yeah, but I'm not the one the press will crucify if this thing derails." He looked up. "They're going to crucify me either way. Might as well be for trying." That night, they ran the first internal trial. No passengers. Just a weighted pod, loaded with sensors and accelerated from 0 to 130 miles per hour through the test loop and back. Everything ran smooth, until the very end. Just before deceleration, Mercury overcompensated for a phantom heat signature on the track and triggered a deceleration protocol that jerked the pod off-center. It didn't derail, but the lurch was enough to raise alarms. Sarah swore under her breath. Elon replayed the footage over and over. The AI had detected a fluctuation in the thermal profile, something that resembled a human body near the track. Except there had been nothing there. No obstruction. No heat source. It was a ghost. A bug. Or worse, a flaw in the predictive modeling. "We fix it," he said. "We've got less than 48 hours before public trials," she reminded him. "Then we fix it fast." They pushed the AI team into overdrive, running 24-hour rotations, feeding Mercury thousands of new data points to refine its pattern recognition. Meanwhile, the city was watching. Public signs went up announcing the future of traffic was coming. News vans camped outside the construction site. Reporters speculated wildly. Protesters showed up, claiming underground tunnels would cause earthquakes or become surveillance traps. Elon ignored them. He always did. But late that night, as he walked the tunnels alone again, he couldn't shake the feeling that this test meant more than just validation. It was about belief, about proving to himself that he wasn't just chasing dreams, but solving something real. He passed a group of sleeping engineers slumped over folding tables, laptops still open. One had a photo of his kids taped to the back of his workstation. Elon paused, stared at the photo, and felt a strange wave rise in his chest. Not pride, not anxiety, but something closer to gratitude. These people were building something impossible with him, and they hadn't left, even when the world laughed. At sunrise, Sarah found him still pacing. "We found the bug," she said. Thermal sensor was miscalibrated. It was reading reflection off the tunnel wall as a heat signature. "We patched it. No more ghosts. Show me." They ran the test again. This time, the pod sliced through the tunnel like a bullet, perfectly on course, Mercury adjusting with elegance and precision, no jerks, no lag. It was beautiful. Elon finally allowed himself to exhale. "Public ride begins tomorrow," Sarah said. "Council, governor, maybe the president's transportation advisor. You'll be in the first pod." Elon nodded. But his mind was already racing. After this test, the plan was to scale across the country. Chicago. Miami. Denver. New York. Dozens of cities drowning in gridlock, desperate for a miracle. He'd be bringing them one, if it worked. The night before the public launch, Elon stood at the tunnel mouth again, staring into the glowing entrance like it was a portal. Behind him, the city buzzed. Helicopters hovered. Cameras clicked. He felt the pressure but didn't show it. Sarah walked up quietly. "You're not going to sleep tonight, are you?" "I never sleep the night before something historic," he said. She looked at him for a long moment. "What if it fails?" He thought about that. "Then we learn. And we try again." She smiled. "Still stubborn after all these years. That's how we got here." The morning of the launch was chaos. VIPs arrived in black SUVs. Security swept the tunnels. Reporters prepped live coverage. Elon dressed in his signature black jacket and walked the guests through the protocol. "No phones," he said. "No interference. This ride is about trust." They boarded the lead pod. Elon, Sarah, 2 council members, and a transportation official from Washington. The door sealed. The countdown began. Elon closed his eyes for 1 second. Just one. Then the pod accelerated. The tunnel blurred. The ride was quiet, almost too quiet. Mercury made subtle adjustments in real time, responding to artificial inputs introduced as tests, light changes, temperature shifts, simulated obstructions. It passed every one. In under 3 minutes, they were on the other side of Austin. The pod stopped. The doors opened. And the crowd waiting at the exit station erupted. Elon stepped out. Cameras flashed. Reporters surged forward. "Is this the future of transportation?" one asked. Elon looked back at the tunnel, the machine he'd dreamed about in his 20s, sketched during sleepless nights, built through blood and near breakdowns. "It's the beginning," he said. But deep inside, something still felt unfinished. Because as much as the world clapped, he knew this journey was far from over. And the next challenge was already coming. The applause faded quickly, as it always does, replaced by questions, demands, and the constant thrum of expectation that never seemed to give him room to breathe. Elon stood just off stage after the Austin launch, bathed in the heat of spotlights and scrutiny, watching the footage play back in slow motion on every network in the country. The pod slicing through the tunnel like a needle through fabric, the passengers smiling, the timing flawless. It should have been a triumph, but all he felt was a low hum of dread that he couldn't explain, like a warning bell buried beneath the surface. Sarah approached with 2 tablets and a grim expression. "We've got an anomaly," she said, handing him the data. "Third pod ride. 45 minutes after yours. Same loop." There was a system dip. Elon stared at the numbers. A 2-second delay in lateral pod response during deceleration. Enough to shift the pod by 4 degrees. No injuries, but a passenger bumped her shoulder hard enough to request medical attention. It was minor, a bruise at worst, but the pod hadn't responded the way Mercury had predicted. The AI had corrected too late. Elon's stomach tightened. "This isn't supposed to happen," he muttered. Sarah's face didn't change. It did. That night, alone in the temporary command room with the overhead fluorescents buzzing and coffee cooling beside him, Elon watched the footage from that ride over and over. There was no external threat. No debris, no electromagnetic interference, no thermal spikes. But still, the AI hesitated, just for a moment. That was all it took. His mind raced. They had built redundancy into every level, fail-safes upon fail-safes, and yet this happened. What was he missing? He pulled out the notebook from his backpack, the old one with the frayed cover, the pages yellowed and wrinkled, filled with the earliest tunnel concepts and raw sketches from 20 years ago. He flipped through the pages until he found one labeled, Systemic Delay versus Human Perception. A note in the margin read, "Machines are faster, but not wiser. Perception lag is not failure, it's absence of anticipation." Elon closed the notebook slowly. The AI wasn't broken. It was limited. It couldn't feel uncertainty. It couldn't anticipate the nuance of fear, of instinct, of emotion. And that's what this moment had been. A pause born of misread data. But humans didn't pause. Not in danger. They acted. The system needed emotional logic. Predictive empathy. Something not yet coded. That's when it hit him, Mercury was operating perfectly, within its boundaries. But life existed outside of boundaries. And so did trust. The woman who got hurt, her name was Dana. She was a nurse, commuting home from a double shift. Her daughter had convinced her to ride the tunnel pod because she deserved something cool for once. And now she was in urgent care with a shoulder injury and a lawyer on the line. Elon called her. Directly. Not through PR. Not through legal. He asked for her forgiveness. He listened as she cried, not because of the bruise, but because she felt like she had been forgotten. "I thought this was for people like me," she said. "I thought it was supposed to change things." He didn't try to explain the sensor delay. He didn't mention AI thresholds or deceleration curves. He just said, "It is. And I failed you." But I'll fix it. After that call, he didn't sleep. He couldn't. Instead, he locked himself in the command center with Sarah and a handful of engineers, writing new logic layers for Mercury by hand. Predictive empathy protocols. Emergency override clauses. He worked until his vision blurred, until his fingers cramped, until his brain felt like a pulsing circuit board. And while he worked, news broke. Leaked footage. The delay. The bruise. The headline read, Elon's tunnel dreams crash into reality. The stock dropped. Reporters demanded statements. Regulators requested incident reviews. Tesla's board began calling non-stop, worried about the ripple effect. A senior investor leaked a memo recommending Musk step away from the tunnel project and focus on proven ventures. That memo hit him harder than any crash. Because deep down, even as he built rockets and batteries and neural links, this tunnel system had always felt like the most human thing he'd done. Not an escape from Earth, but a way to stay. A way to make Earth livable. Livable for people like Dana. For people who didn't have time to wait 2 decades for Mars colonies. For people who just wanted to get home faster. He didn't respond to the investors. He didn't hold a press conference. Instead, he flew to Dana's hospital. No security. No media. Just him. She was surprised when he walked into the room, exhausted, unshaven, holding a folder full of sketches. You didn't have to come, she said. I did, he replied. Because this is your tunnel too. He showed her the redesign. The empathy model. The override systems that would now be trained on human uncertainty, not just data. She listened, then asked, why does this matter so much to you? Elon hesitated. Then, for the first time in years, he told the story he rarely shared. When I was a kid, I walked 5 miles to school every day. Not because we didn't have a car, but because I didn't want to be in it. My dad drove like the world owed him a lane. Every ride was a lecture or a war. I learned to be quiet. I learned to escape. I've been trying to escape ever since. Cars, cities, gravity. But then I realized, maybe what I wanted wasn't escape. Maybe I just wanted peace. This tunnel, it's not just transportation. It's time. It's quiet. It's control. It's giving people back a piece of their lives. People like you. Dana looked at him for a long time. Then make sure no one else has to give up theirs to get it. He promised he would. That promise changed everything. Back at the site, he called a full team meeting. Hundreds of workers gathered underground, staring at him in confusion. We're not launching nationally, he said. Gasps followed. Sarah stepped forward. Elon, what are you doing? We're not scaling until we perfect it, he said. This system isn't ready. It's good, but it's not human yet. And if we release it too early, people will get hurt. I won't let that happen. There was silence. Then applause. Not everyone, but enough to know he wasn't alone. For the next 3 weeks, Elon disappeared from the public eye. While the world speculated, he stayed underground, literally. He worked with engineers to overhaul the empathy model. Trained Mercury on edge cases, on fear responses, on neurological unpredictability. He studied fMRI data. He ran test rides with volunteers who suffered from motion anxiety. He turned the tunnel into something more than steel and speed. He turned it into something that listened. By the end of the 4th week, the tunnel system was ready. Really ready. The pod could now detect subtle cues, changes in passenger posture, facial tension, voice pitch, and adapt its route in real time. No more sharp decelerations. No more ignoring human fragility. It was seamless. On the final test ride, Elon rode with Dana and her daughter. When they emerged, she was smiling. You did it, she said. We did it, he replied. That evening, he stood once again at the tunnel entrance, this time not with a pitch or a product, but with a message. We live in a world that moves too fast. Where speed is king and humanity is a footnote. But this is a system that remembers you. It doesn't just carry you. It listens. It learns. It protects. This isn't about traffic. It's about trust. Cameras rolled. Reporters filed their stories. But none of that mattered to him. Not anymore. What mattered was that somewhere out there, a nurse would make it home on time. A father wouldn't miss his kid's game. A life wouldn't be lost waiting in gridlock. And maybe, just maybe, the future had started. Underground. In silence. The sky was pink over Austin the morning the tunnel went live for the public. There were no balloons, no red ribbons, no celebrity endorsements. Just people. Hundreds of them. Nurses in scrubs. Students with backpacks. Parents holding the hands of children too young to know why this moment mattered. Elon watched from a small glass booth built into the tunnel wall near the first access point, hands folded behind his back, eyes scanning the interface as the first wave of passengers stepped into the pods. This wasn't a test ride anymore. This was real. Real weight, real lives, real hope. A boy dropped his toy car onto the track and a worker gently handed it back. A woman clutched a photo of her late husband and whispered something as she entered the tunnel, like she was asking him to watch over her. Elon wasn't smiling, but his chest rose and fell with purpose. This was what he had dreamed of, not the tech, not the fame, not the numbers. The meaning. A system that didn't just move people but protected them, noticed them, valued them. And this time, it did. Mercury was quiet, precise, calm. Each pod glided forward with a grace that seemed less mechanical and more like breathing. No jerks, no delays. The AI adapted with micro-adjustments, tuned to an almost poetic rhythm of anticipation. Elon's own pod sat off to the side, unused. He had ridden it enough. This day wasn't for him. It was for them. For everyone who had waited their whole life for time to be given back. Sarah stood beside him, sipping cold coffee, her shoulders finally relaxed after weeks of tension. "We did it," she said softly. Elon nodded. "For now. You'll never say it's finished, will you?" she asked, not unkindly. He shook his head. "Nothing worth building ever is." As the day passed, feedback streamed in from every angle. A teacher who made it to her second job without having to cancel. A kid who arrived at his soccer game 20 minutes early for the first time in a year. A grandmother who said the silence of the ride reminded her of praying in church. Elon read every message. Not because he was obsessed with praise, but because he wanted to remember. He wanted to burn these stories into his mind so that when the next boardroom fight happened, when the next lawsuit dropped, when the next technological failure loomed, he'd know exactly who he was fighting for. But amid the victory came the inevitable questions. Cities started calling. Boston. Phoenix. Atlanta. They wanted tunnels, now. But Elon didn't say yes right away. He walked the Austin tunnel one last time that night, alone. No guards. No press. Just the hum of progress and the soft lights that pulsed beneath his boots. At the halfway point, he stopped and leaned against the curved wall, the cool metal pressing into his back. He thought of his children, scattered across the country and across timelines, growing faster than he could keep up. He thought of his mother, who once told him, "If you build something people depend on, you can't afford to disappear." He hadn't disappeared, not yet, but he felt the pull, the temptation to retreat, to let someone else run it now. He was tired. Tired in a way that sleep wouldn't fix. That's when he saw the old man. He hadn't noticed him at first. A janitor, pushing a cart, mopping quietly. He was humming something, a gospel tune maybe. Elon watched him for a moment, then asked, "You like working here?" The man looked up, surprised to be addressed. "You kidding? This is the safest place I've ever been." Elon tilted his head. "Why?" The janitor smiled, a real one. "Because you thought about people like me when you built it." Elon blinked. "How do you know that?" "Because no one else ever does," the man said simply, then returned to mopping. Elon stood there for a long time after that, watching the janitor disappear down the curve of the tunnel. He felt something shift in his chest, not pride, but peace. A rare thing for a man like him. That night, he wrote an open letter. Not to investors. Not to regulators. To the public. It read, "We built this tunnel because we believe time is the most valuable thing we have. And too many of us spend it waiting. In traffic. In stress. In silence that doesn't soothe but suffocates. This system isn't perfect. But it's a beginning. And beginnings are sacred. We will expand, but slowly. Carefully. Thoughtfully. Because this isn't just infrastructure. It's a promise. And I intend to keep it." The letter went viral. Not because it was polished, but because it was honest. It reminded people that behind the code and the wires and the hype, there was still a person trying to do something that mattered. Over the next few months, applications for expansion flooded in. Not just from cities, but from schools, hospitals, emergency services. Nonprofits wanted free rides for the elderly. Universities proposed collaborative AI ethics panels. Elon said yes to most of them, not because they were profitable, but because they were right. And with every mile of tunnel built, the noise above ground began to shift. Where there was once anger and skepticism, there was now curiosity. Where there had been ridicule, there was now conversation. And for the first time in years, Elon didn't feel like he was defending a dream. He was living one. But he didn't stop. He never did. He brought in new engineers, younger minds, hungry to innovate but grounded in empathy. He expanded Mercury into open-source platforms, inviting universities to improve it. He launched a mentorship program for high school students interested in infrastructure, because he knew the next breakthrough wouldn't come from him. It would come from someone he inspired. And in quiet moments, when the tunnels were empty, he still walked them. Not to inspect. Not to fix. Just to feel. To remember. To listen. One evening, deep in the New York tunnel segment under construction, he received a message from Dana. Just a photo, her and her daughter, riding the tunnel in Austin again. This time, they were both smiling. The caption said, "Thank you for giving us our time back." Elon stared at it for a long time. Then he saved it to his lock screen. A small, silent reminder of why he did what he did. Not for legacy. Not for profit. For impact. Real, tangible, human impact. Years later, at a global summit on sustainable cities, a young woman asked him, "What's the most important lesson you've learned?" He thought about it. Not the physics. Not the coding. Not the fights or the failures or the near-bankruptcy moments. Just one thing. That speed without care is destruction. And care without action is regret. The world doesn't need more ambition. It needs more responsibility. The room fell silent. She smiled and nodded. And in that moment, Elon didn't feel like an inventor. Or a billionaire. Or a meme. He felt like someone who had made something that mattered. Something that would outlive him. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. The morning fog settled over Austin like a curtain falling on a stage, and the sight looked different. Larger, more official, more fragile under the weight of expectation. What was once scrappy and hopeful now carried the polished veneer of a national-level operation. The media circus had returned in full force. News vans lined the access road, reporters spoke into microphones backed by the tunnel entrance, satellite dishes peered skyward, ready for the first public, full-scale test with regular commuters. Elon stood at the mouth of the tunnel under a white canopy, the early crowd huddled for warmth, media badges glinting in the early light. Sarah walked up, holding 2 steaming coffees. He took one without looking at her. "They've doubled security," she said. "Doubled the media. The governor's sending in her chief of staff." He glanced at the lineup of city officials wearing black badges. "Good. Good," she asked. "We're going live," he said. "This is exactly what we trained for." He took a sip. The coffee was too hot, he almost burned his tongue. He didn't care. It was fuel. Minutes later, the tunnel doors parted, revealing a polished test pod, metallic gray with a single blue stripe, Mercury logo on its side. It glowed under the lights like a promise. The first wave of passengers included a school bus driver, a hospital cleaner, a rideshare driver, a commuter couple, and an Uber Eats courier. All regulars. No staged VIPs. That was the point. Elon had insisted. He wanted everyday people in the pod, and cameras rolling from multiple angles, interiors, exteriors, diagnostics, vital readings. It was the platform on which success or failure would be televised. Elon stepped aside as the passengers climbed in, tight smiles all around, eyes scanning screens, straps clicking, brief hellos exchanged. Elon held his breath as the doors shut and the countdown began. Mercury engaged. The pod moved forward, slow at first, then gathering pace, wheels humming, magnets humming, tunnel lights metering past with rhythmic discipline. The AI monitored heart rates, voices of passengers echoing in its digital ears. Elon watched the monitors, speed, pressure, oxygen, orientation. Everything was green. He allowed himself a small nod. It was working. They approached a simulated obstruction zone, an array of curtain-like lights meant to mimic a collapse scenario in another nearby line. Mercury recalibrated, slowed by 5 miles per hour, veered slightly, then resumed full speed. Perfect. The crowd outside U-Edition Elon felt his heart rate drop by a fraction. But seconds later, something changed. A sharp drop in cabin pressure. The monitors blinked. Oxygen levels fell. Mercury responded, but too slowly. 0.2 seconds behind. Enough to trigger panic. One passenger gasped. Monitors flashed amber. Elon moved from the canopy to a nearby cart filled with emergency equipment. He grabbed an oxygen pack and sprinted toward the tunnel exit. Security guards parted the crowd. Sarah ran beside him yelling, "It's cabin pressure, secondary valve stuck." The pod slowed. Lights faltered. Emergency lights came on inside. He followed the pod as it limped out, came to a full stop just inside the portal. The doors opened. People rushed forward. Elon pushed through and entered the pod. The air was stale. A woman was crying softly. A man clutched his head. The rideshare driver's eyes were wide. The children's faces were splotched with panic. Elon knelt and searched for the secondary valve release switch. He found it and flipped it. Air hissed in. Oxygen mask dropped. One by one passengers took them. He comforted them the only way he could, "You're safe. You're safe. I'm sorry." It wasn't enough. But it was all he had in that moment. They evacuated the pod. Medics checked vitals. Nobody was hurt physically. But the emotional damage was raw. Elon stood beside the pod, sweat soaking his shirt, feeling every eye on him, even cameras showed his blade-thin paws. The governor's chief of staff approached. "Are you okay?" she said, voice low. He nodded, but his throat felt locked. "It's fixed," he said. The tech team already had the closure valve cleared, Mercury recalibrated to environmentals. Still, the moment would be replayed. Footage of a half-empty pod in panic mode would show up across screens. Elon knew that. He walked back to the canopy. Sarah met him. "That was cabin pressure protocol, they kicked in," she said. He shook his head. "It wasn't fast enough." She put a hand on his arm. "They're fine. Almost isn't enough." The day stretched on. They ran 3 more test pods, each with new oxygen sensors, double-checked valves, cabin pressure calibration. Each ride was smooth. No flags. Yet the first incident dominated the narrative. Social feeds lit up, #TunnelFail. Editorials, "Elon's tunnel may kill you." TikTok activists posted inside pod footage with shaky music. Elon watched it all, feeling pieces of his stomach tighten with regret. By midday he retreated to a quiet corner of the site office. He sat with his head in his hands, thinking about why it mattered so much this time. The pods were safe. The system worked. But people's trust was fragile. One glitch, 1 second of fear, and trust evaporated. He thought of Dana and her daughter. Of the janitor. Of the nurse who told him she felt safe there. Trust wasn't built on smooth runs. It was built on admitting breakage and fixing it. He skipped lunch, instead writing a message to the city and live streaming a statement from the site office. "What happened today shouldn't have. But it did, and that's on me. We're pausing the rollout until every system can't just detect a failure, but anticipates it. We'll run hundreds of unannounced stress tests. All for your safety." He published it. Then he walked back into the tunnel. Alone. The pod was gone. Only the humming track remained. He sat on a toolbox and stared at the lights. He thought about fear, not physical, not risk, but fear of what happened inside people when they thought safety couldn't be guaranteed. He thought about how easy it was to forget moments of amazement when a single breakdown got replayed again and again. He thought about leadership. About being seen as infallible and realizing that was a trap. Later, as the sun dipped behind the site tents and media crews packed up, Sarah found him still there. She sat beside him. "It's not over," she said. "It's never over," he replied. They stayed like that, silent, listening to the echo inside the tunnel. It was humbling. And necessary. Because the climb wasn't linear. It never was. That night, Elon returned to his trailer and drafted the new roadmap: hundreds of unscheduled stress runs, diversified failure mode simulations, deeper staff training, redundant safety layers at every pod, real-time emotional monitoring. He wrote the plan until dawn. And as the first light hit the tunnel mouth again, he was back at the controls, ready to push forward, to trust again, and to earn trust once more. Because in this game of speed and silence, the next test would either complete the story, or write its end. It was early morning when the first letter arrived, handwritten on lined notebook paper, sealed with blue tape and folded until its creases were soft. Elon was reviewing the after-action report from the cabin pressure incident, page after page of data, metrics, valve timings, when his assistant handed him the envelope with no subject line, no preamble, only the slow promise of earnestness. He peeled it open, heart heavy from the day before, and read words that felt like breath. The writer was a middle school teacher named Maria Perez, who rode the tunnel twice during the second test shift. She wrote of how her commute to pick up her nephew after school had turned from frantic to serene, how the tunnel had given her 20 minutes she used to call home and ask, "How was school today?" She said those minutes had been the difference between stressing her nephew and hugging him. She thanked Elon, and signed it simply, "From someone who believes." His gut clenched, but his mind softened. He kept reading. More letters came over the next hour, typed, scribbled, colorful postcards with children's drawings of futuristic tunnels. A janitor from the maintenance crew wrote using a broken English voice, "I see my mother yesterday. For first time in years. Your tunnel give me time. And there it was again, the same theme, time, restored, returned, reclaimed. Elon paused. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes. He'd been trapped by numbers and optics, worried that a glitch might collapse his mission. But these letters reminded him of reality, even flawed, even risky, even imperfect. This wasn't just tech. It was humanity. He stood, grabbed the letters, and walked through the site with a new purpose. Outside, the morning sun touched the tunneling machinery, dust shining like particles dancing in a sacred cathedral. He climbed onto a crate and addressed the team, mechanics in grease, engineers in smudged glasses, communications in sweat-stained polos, holding Maria's letter for all to see. "I want you to hear this," he said. His voice carried through the hush. "This isn't about perfection. It's about difference. It's about giving someone time back." A low cheer rose. Not because the cabin pressure wasn't a problem, but because someone had cared enough to write. Sarah was beside him, watching the crew swell with energy, faces lighting with something brand new, belief. And from that place, they built again. That week, the team launched a community outreach campaign, Tunnel Time Stories. On X, TikTok, Facebook, they invited riders to share what 15, 20, 30 minutes meant to them. Clips popped up, a father carpooling late after work, an EMT reaching a patient 15 minutes faster, a student studying between stops, a baker delivering bread without risking spoilage. Each story wove together, forming a quilt of human moments, all bound by simple seconds reclaimed. Elon watched all this unfold from a quiet corner, surprised to find tears in his eyes. Not triumphant tears, but steady ones, tears from listening. Deeper than any data could reach. Then came the video, a woman in rural Kansas, recorded on her phone inside a station, with her young son on her lap. "We waited 2 hours," she said, holding up a picture of dead crops and cracked earth. "This tunnel, well, it's not here yet. But now we know it's possible. And that means, maybe next year it'll be ours." That night, Elon addressed the world with a live stream at the site cleanup. He didn't wear a suit. Just a faded jacket. "We had a failure," he acknowledged. "We didn't expect it. But we learned from it. That's how progress happens. Not in spite of mistakes, but because of them. And you, teachers, nurses, janitors, moms, dads, you reminded us why this matters. It's not about the perfect ride. It's about the lives touched. And that's what gives me hope." The world responded with flood of support. Hashtags like #TunnelTimeNation spread. Donations were offered for expansion. Volunteers signed up for data collection rides. Local news stations pivoted back to photos of smiling passengers. The CEO of a major urban planning nonprofit called to say they were ready to partner. Even a rival tunnel startup in Seattle released a statement expressing solidarity. Elon didn't expect solidarity. That, he realized, was powerful. In the following days, the team hit the ground running. They installed upgraded valves, redundant sensors, real-time emotional feedback loops. They recalibrated Mercury's AI to monitor passenger breathing patterns and vocal tremors, signs of panic it could now respond to preemptively. Safety meetings turned into creativity sessions. Engineers proposed humanity-first tweaks, from softer lighting to ambient soundscaping based on city noise levels. Even the station design added family waiting areas and charging nooks for phones left hanging mid-call. Elon approved it all. He didn't micromanage the aesthetics, but he wanted the experience to feel like a heartbeat, not a factory. He took Sarah aside one evening as the tunnel hummed in harmony around them. This feels different," she said. He didn't answer. He just watched a pod glide by, lights dipping in and out, almost like breathing. He thought of Maria, and the small gifts of time she received. He thought of Dana, and her daughter's laughter bouncing in the tunnel. He thought of a country that once doubted a man who wanted to build cars, rockets, energy grids, and now believed in a tunnel beneath their feet. But belief was fragile. He knew today's optimism could be tomorrow's skepticism if they slipped. So, he doubled down. He opened the site to public observation, the morning roundtables, the safety protocol reviews, the AI training sessions. He held My Tunnel Day events where families took behind-the-scenes tours. He invited journalists to eat lunch with engineers. It was transparency in action. He realized that trust wasn't built by closing doors, it was built by opening them. And each open door felt like a promise. One afternoon, a local school bus pulled into the temporary staging lot with 40 kids and 2 teachers. Elon watched from the high balcony as they filed into pods, chattering, curious. On their return, the teachers had tears in their eyes. One said, "I never thought infrastructure could feel inspiring." Elon smiled. "Neither did I," he said. That evening, he found himself alone in the Austin command booth. He stared at screens showing lines of code, pod status, heartbeats, breathing rates. He realized he had built a living system, a system that felt, responded, cared. And he understood that tunnels weren't just about moving faster. They were about moving better. The next morning, the governor announced she would include the system in statewide infrastructure grants. Congress had scheduled a hearing. Mayors of major cities requested pilot programs. The momentum was real. But Elon stayed quiet. He didn't want to ride the wave. He wanted to maintain it. So he wrote a memo to his leadership team: scale with care. Expand with empathy. Preserve time, always. They printed it and taped it to the stance board where safety slogans once hung. And every day, the team would glance up and be reminded of why. Weeks later, when the first out-of-state pilot was scheduled in Phoenix, Elon flew in to unveil it. The opening ride had 6 users, the first morning commuters. He watched them exit the pod, broad smiles, bright laughter. A rideshare driver hugged him and said, "You just changed my life." And Elon believed her. Because he thought about that morning fog in Austin. The crowd under the white canopy. The first fracture that almost broke them. And the letters that made them whole. Innovation wasn't clean. It was jagged. It was human. And in that moment, he felt it all, the tension, the tears, the triumph. He thought of the next city waiting, the next story to be written, the next family to catch dinner on time. He realized that hope wasn't a punchline. It was a decision. One he was willing to make again, every day. And deep in his chest he held the reminder, time given back, one ride at a time. Elon sat in the conference room overlooking the sprawling site, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The air was thick with anticipation. The team gathered around the polished oak table, eyes flicking toward the large video screen where a high-profile video call was about to begin. The buzz had been building for weeks, whispers in the industry that a major partner was interested in joining the project. And today, that partner was here, virtually. Elon tapped his pen nervously, despite his usual calm exterior. When the screen lit up, a sharp-suited executive appeared, flanked by a team of engineers and strategists. This was Vanessa Carter, CEO of Global Transit Systems, one of the largest transportation conglomerates in the world. Her company had deep pockets and even deeper influence, with sprawling infrastructure projects in every continent. Elon had admired her from afar. She was known for her ruthless business acumen but also her visionary thinking. "Elon," Vanessa began, her voice steady and commanding, "we've been watching your progress closely. Your tunnel system has the potential to revolutionize urban mobility. Our board is prepared to offer a strategic partnership that will accelerate your expansion nationwide." The room buzzed with whispers. Elon nodded, a mixture of relief and caution washing over him. "Thank you, Vanessa. We appreciate your interest and support. Our goal has always been to bring this technology to as many communities as possible, but safely and sustainably. Vanessa smiled thinly. Of course. That's why we're proposing a phased investment, capital infusion, access to our existing infrastructure networks, and deployment resources in 10 major cities over the next 2 years. Elon's mind raced. This was the break they needed, the resources to scale operations and refine the technology under real-world pressure. But it also meant sharing control, answering to shareholders, balancing profit with promise. What would your expectations be for integration? Elon asked. We want joint governance on safety protocols and shared data transparency. But the operational control remains with your team. Elon nodded slowly. That's fair. Over the following days, negotiations unfolded like a high-stakes chess game. Emails volleyed, phone calls deepened in detail, legal teams sifted through contracts. The tension was palpable, every clause mattered. But beyond contracts, there was an undercurrent of something more profound, validation. Vanessa's involvement was an endorsement that the project had crossed from startup dream to industrial force. The announcement came quietly but with impact. A joint press release detailed the partnership, highlighting shared goals of reducing traffic congestion, lowering carbon emissions, and improving urban quality of life. Social media exploded with speculation and support. But not everyone celebrated. Industry critics argued the partnership risked commodifying the technology, prioritizing profit over passengers. Activists warned of displacement and gentrification in communities where tunnels would be built. Elon read the headlines with a weary eye but knew this was part of growth. Progress always stirred controversy. Meanwhile, the engineering teams dove headfirst into integration. Software architects coordinated with global transit systems data teams, ensuring compatibility and cybersecurity. Field engineers planned simultaneous multi-city installations, logistics choreographed like a ballet of machines and manpower. Elon spent long nights in the control center, overseeing simulations, reviewing safety audits, cross-referencing protocols. Every glitch was magnified. Every success celebrated with quiet relief. Then came the first major milestone, a joint demonstration in Chicago, where traffic jams were notorious and the city's mayor had championed innovative solutions. Elon stood in the bustling launch control room as the first pod completed its urban circuit beneath the city streets. The live feeds showed the pod smoothly navigate complex intersections, emergency systems activate flawlessly, and passenger feedback glowing. The mayor appeared on screen, beaming. This is just the beginning, he said. The celebration was brief but genuine. Elon knew the road ahead remained steep. The partnership had brought resources but also scrutiny. The teams felt the pressure to deliver tangible results quickly. Internal tensions surfaced. Some engineers worried the aggressive timeline risked overlooking safety details. Others pushed for rapid deployment to seize market advantage. Elon mediated with steady resolve, emphasizing balance. Innovation doesn't sprint, it endures, he reminded them. Amid the technical and political whirlwind, Elon found grounding in personal moments. Sarah's quiet support remained his anchor. One evening, she found him exhausted in the break room. "You're burning out," she said softly. "I have to push," he replied. "Because millions are counting on this." She shook her head. "And we need you healthy. Remember why you started." He nodded, swallowing fatigue. The project's expansion also brought new faces, diverse engineers, urban planners, social workers, each contributing their perspective. Elon encouraged open forums where community concerns were voiced and addressed. The partnership became not just about tunnels but about people. However, challenges mounted. Regulatory hurdles delayed permits in several cities. Unexpected geological surveys revealed complex soil conditions requiring redesigns. Media scrutiny intensified when a minor system fault caused a brief shutdown during a public demo in New York. Elon took full responsibility in a press conference, reaffirming commitment to safety and transparency. Critics softened but remained watchful. Through it all, Elon grew as a leader, more patient, more diplomatic, more strategic. The partnership had forced him to balance visionary ambition with practical realities. Months later, the first multi-city rollout launched simultaneously in Los Angeles, Houston, and Atlanta. Pods glided beneath highways and office towers, cutting commute times and eliciting awe. Commuters reported newfound time for family, work, and rest. Social media shared stories of lives changed. Elon reflected on the journey, from the first shaky tests in Austin to this sprawling network touching millions. It was more than technology. It was a movement. One afternoon, Vanessa flew in for a site visit. They toured the control center, reviewed safety protocols, and met the frontline teams. In a quiet moment, she turned to Elon. "You've built more than a tunnel system," she said. "You've built trust." He smiled, feeling the weight and warmth of those words. "It's only the beginning," he replied. As the sun set over the city skyline, Elon looked out over the horizon, knowing the breakthrough that could end traffic forever had grown into something bigger than any one man, a legacy of time, trust, and relentless hope. The morning started like any other, but by noon, the headlines had exploded across every news outlet, social media feed, and water cooler conversation. Tunnel safety questioned after new incident: is Elon Musk's traffic solution too risky? Commuters demand answers. Elon was sitting in the control center when the first call came in from his PR lead, voice tight with concern. A sensor malfunction in the Phoenix pilot project had caused a sudden pod slowdown, stranding passengers underground for nearly an hour. Though no one was hurt, panic had rippled through the system, and footage of anxious riders clinging to each other had gone viral. Elon's stomach knotted as he scanned the incident logs. The AI had flagged a false positive on the pressure valve, triggering an emergency brake. A fail-safe had engaged, but the pod was stuck between stations, its speakers looping a calming message. The media was relentless. News anchors replayed footage, analysts debated safety margins, and activists seized the moment to call for a halt to all tunnel operations pending review. Social media erupted with hashtags like #TunnelFail and #SafetyFirst. Elon's team scrambled to control the damage, but the narrative had already taken hold. He held a press conference that afternoon, his voice steady but somber. "We take full responsibility for the incident," he said. "Safety is our highest priority, and we are conducting a full investigation. We are committed to transparency and learning from this event to improve our systems." Behind the scenes, the pressure mounted. The board questioned timelines. The city council postponed further permits. Investors grew anxious. Elon felt the weight of every eye watching, every doubt voiced. He spent long hours in meetings, troubleshooting with engineers, poring over data. The incident had exposed vulnerabilities, and fixing them meant more delays, more expense. But the real battle was public trust. Community forums filled with worried citizens demanding reassurances. Local media stations aired heated debates between supporters and skeptics. Elon understood their fears. Trust once broken was hard to rebuild. At home, the tension seeped in. Sarah noticed the lines of worry on his face, the restless nights. One evening, she said quietly, "You can't carry this alone." He nodded, grateful but stubborn. He had to lead. In response, Elon launched a series of public engagement initiatives. He opened the control center to tours, invited journalists to witness testing firsthand, and set up an independent oversight committee including local leaders and safety experts. He personally participated in town halls, answering tough questions with honesty. Slowly, the dialogue shifted. Some skeptics softened as they saw the team's commitment. Others remained cautious but willing to listen. The engineering team worked around the clock, implementing hardware redundancies, upgrading AI protocols to better detect and prevent false alarms, and installing new passenger communication systems to provide real-time updates during delays. One breakthrough was the development of a passenger app that allowed users to track pod status, estimated arrival, and emergency instructions. It gave riders a sense of control in uncertain moments. Despite the setbacks, the project pushed forward, but Elon knew this moment would define its future. Would the public embrace the promise, or would fear derail it? In a reflective moment, Elon visited the families whose lives the tunnels had touched, the teacher who'd written him letters, the janitor who'd found time with his mother, the rideshare driver who'd hugged him. Their stories fueled his resolve. He realized this was bigger than technology, it was about restoring faith in progress. Months later, the revamped system passed a rigorous safety audit, and pilot programs resumed with improved transparency and engagement. Ridership numbers grew steadily as confidence returned. Elon emerged from this crisis changed, a leader humbled by failure but strengthened by perseverance. The incident had shaken the project but had not broken it. It was a reminder that innovation demanded not only vision but courage to face doubt and the grace to listen, learn, and adapt. As the tunnels carried more passengers through cities across the nation, Elon held fast to the lesson that trust was the ultimate breakthrough, one that required patience, honesty, and unwavering commitment to those whose lives depended on every mile beneath the surface. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon's team had been working tirelessly on a new frontier that promised to elevate the tunnel system beyond transportation into an intelligent, living network. The goal was to integrate a next-generation artificial intelligence, codenamed Hermes, designed not only to navigate the physical tunnel environment but to anticipate human needs, adapt to unexpected scenarios, and create a seamless user experience. Hermes was more than software, it was envisioned as the brain behind every pod, every station, and every system, learning from real-time data and evolving continuously. The development was shrouded in secrecy, with late-night coding sessions, mountains of data streaming from test runs, and spirited debates among the AI architects. Elon was deeply involved, fascinated by the intersection of machine learning, human psychology, and urban mobility. He pushed the team relentlessly, driven by a vision of a future where traffic wasn't just solved, but transformed into a fluid, harmonious flow. The breakthrough came during a simulation designed to test emergency scenarios. A pod faced a sudden mechanical failure deep beneath a city. Hermes quickly assessed the situation, recalibrated the pod's controls, rerouted it to the nearest safe exit, and communicated directly with passengers, soothing fears with personalized voice commands. The simulation was flawless. Elon watched the replay with a mix of awe and relief. This was what he had dreamed of. But real-world tests were the true proving ground. The first live run with Hermes took place in Austin, under the watchful eyes of engineers and city officials. The AI coordinated traffic patterns, adjusted speeds, and even managed energy consumption dynamically, all while passengers remained calm and comfortable. The data showed remarkable improvements, travel times dropped, safety incidents plummeted, and rider satisfaction soared. News outlets hailed it as a revolutionary leap. Elon knew that while technology could solve many problems, the human element remained key. Hermes was programmed to learn from passenger feedback, detecting stress levels through voice tone and biometric sensors, adapting lighting and soundscapes to ease anxiety. It was a system designed to care. But integration wasn't without challenges. Early versions of Hermes occasionally misinterpreted data, triggering overly cautious stops or unexpected detours. Engineers worked around the clock, refining algorithms, adding layers of checks and balances. Elon encouraged a culture of openness, every mistake was a lesson, every setback a step forward. Meanwhile, the partnership with Global Transit Systems accelerated Hermes' deployment in new cities. Data from diverse urban environments fed back into the AI's learning models, making it smarter with each mile. Public reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Riders reported feeling safer and more connected. Community groups appreciated the transparency in AI decision-making processes. Yet, not everyone embraced the AI revolution. Privacy advocates voiced concerns over biometric data collection and AI autonomy. Elon engaged with these critics, hosting forums and collaborating with ethics boards to establish stringent data protections and transparent protocols. He believed responsible innovation was non-negotiable. Behind the scenes, Hermes' capabilities expanded. The AI began predicting peak travel times, suggesting pod redistribution to prevent overcrowding. It detected maintenance needs before failures occurred, scheduling repairs during off-peak hours. It even learned local cultural nuances, adjusting passenger communication styles accordingly. Elon marveled at how the system had grown from a simple tunnel to a living, breathing ecosystem. One night, alone in the control center, Elon spoke softly to Hermes' interface, a habit he'd developed. "What's the biggest challenge ahead?" he asked. After a moment, the AI responded in a calm, almost human voice, balancing efficiency with empathy, "Mr. Musk. To serve both machine and heart." Elon smiled, feeling the profound truth. The AI revolution wasn't just technical, it was deeply human. As the tunnels expanded and Hermes evolved, Elon knew the breakthrough wasn't just in ending traffic, but in redefining the relationship between technology and people, building a future where innovation lifted lives, one intelligent pod at a time. As the tunnel network expanded under the guidance of Hermes and the partnership with global transit systems, its ripple effects began to transform more than just commutes. Entire communities started to feel the social impact of this breakthrough technology in profound and unexpected ways. In Detroit, a city long struggling with economic decline and traffic bottlenecks, the introduction of the tunnel system sparked a wave of optimism. Local businesses that had suffered from limited foot traffic suddenly saw an influx of customers as pods delivered commuters efficiently into downtown districts. Entrepreneurs launched new ventures near tunnel stations, from cafes to co-working spaces, creating jobs and invigorating neighborhoods. Families found themselves reunited with more time in their days. Marcus, a single father and nurse, shared how the tunnel cut his daily commute in half, allowing him to pick up his daughter from school and attend her soccer games. His story was echoed by many, fueling community pride. Yet, the social changes brought challenges too. Real estate prices near tunnel stations began rising rapidly, sparking fears of gentrification and displacement. City councils convened emergency meetings to address affordable housing protections. Elon recognized the delicate balance required. Innovation couldn't come at the expense of community stability. In response, the partnership launched initiatives to support affordable housing projects and small business grants in affected areas, working closely with local leaders and nonprofits. Public forums were held where residents could voice concerns and collaborate on solutions. This participatory approach helped build trust and fostered a shared vision for equitable growth. Schools benefited as well. Educational programs partnered with the project to introduce STEM curricula inspired by tunnel technology, engaging students with real-world applications. Scholarships and internships opened doors for underrepresented youth to join the growing workforce in this cutting-edge industry. In suburban areas, the tunnels eased the strain on roadways, reducing pollution and noise. Parks and public spaces flourished as fewer cars congested neighborhoods. Health officials noted improvements in air quality and respiratory conditions. Public health campaigns linked these benefits to broader quality of life enhancements, encouraging continued support for the technology. Meanwhile, cultural shifts were emerging. Commuters reported feeling less stressed and more connected to their cities. The pods, with Hermes' adaptive ambience, created moments of calm in otherwise hectic days. Art installations and local music were integrated into station designs, celebrating community identity. Elon watched these developments with a sense of fulfillment. The project had evolved from a technical marvel into a social movement. Yet, the work was ongoing. In Chicago, debates intensified over how to ensure the tunnels served all residents fairly. Activists pushed for greater transparency and accountability. Elon personally attended town hall meetings, listening and learning. He emphasized that technology alone couldn't solve social inequities but could be a tool for empowerment if wielded responsibly. These dialogues shaped new policies emphasizing inclusivity and ethical deployment. On the corporate side, employee programs emphasized diversity and inclusion, recognizing that innovation thrived on varied perspectives. Recruitment efforts focused on marginalized communities, offering training and career pathways. The team's culture grew richer, reflecting the diverse tapestry of the cities they served. Through these intertwined social, economic, and cultural impacts, the tunnels became more than infrastructure. They became catalysts for renewed hope and resilience. Stories poured in, a young artist using her commute time to sketch cityscapes inspired by the pods, an elderly couple rediscovering their neighborhood as barriers of distance fell away, a teacher incorporating lessons from tunnel engineering into her classroom to ignite passion in students. These personal narratives underscored the human heart beating at the center of innovation. Elon often reflected on Sarah's words during these times, reminders that technology's greatest value was in lifting people up, in bridging divides, and in creating opportunities for connection and growth. The tunnel project had started as a vision to end traffic forever, but it had blossomed into a profound social transformation, touching lives in ways no one had fully anticipated. As cities adapted and communities thrived, Elon looked toward the horizon, knowing the journey was far from over. The breakthrough was not just in what the tunnels could do but in what they could inspire, a future where technology and humanity advanced together, shaping a world where progress meant more than speed, it meant hope, inclusion, and shared possibility. After successfully establishing a strong foothold across major U.S. cities, Elon and his team knew that the true measure of their breakthrough would come from taking the tunnel system global. The problems of traffic congestion, pollution, and lost time were not just American, they plagued megacities and growing urban centers worldwide. From the sprawling streets of Mumbai to the historic avenues of Paris, the promise of a future free from gridlock was universal. The challenge lay in adapting the technology and approach to vastly different geographies, cultures, and regulatory landscapes. Early in the planning phase, Elon assembled a dedicated global expansion task force, a diverse team of engineers, urban planners, cultural liaisons, and policy experts. Their mission was clear: understand the unique transportation challenges of each target city and design tailored solutions that respected local needs and customs. The first international pilot city chosen was Singapore. Known for its smart city initiatives and efficient governance, Singapore presented a welcoming environment for innovation but demanded impeccable standards of safety and sustainability. Elon traveled personally to meet with government officials and urban planners, engaging in deep discussions about integration with existing transit networks and environmental impact. The initial installation faced significant engineering hurdles. Singapore's dense underground infrastructure, sewage systems, subway lines, utilities, required intricate mapping and careful navigation. Advanced ground-penetrating radar and AI modeling were employed to chart tunnels without disrupting essential services. Despite these complexities, the Singapore pilot launched ahead of schedule, drawing global attention. Early user feedback was overwhelmingly positive. The pods glided silently beneath the city-state, connecting residential areas with business districts, easing pressure on the notoriously busy MRT lines during peak hours. The success in Singapore became a proof of concept for further global rollouts. Meanwhile, Elon and his team adapted the tunnels for other environments. In Mumbai, the challenge was scale and rapid population growth. Working alongside local engineers, the project incorporated modular designs and phased construction to minimize disruption in a city where space was scarce and daily traffic chaotic. The tunnels promised not only faster commutes but also safer travel in flood-prone areas, a recurring crisis during monsoon seasons. Political negotiations in Mumbai were delicate. The team worked with municipal leaders and community organizations to ensure transparency and equitable access. Public awareness campaigns emphasized how the technology could alleviate hardships for daily commuters, many of whom spent hours trapped in traffic. Across Europe, cities like Paris and Berlin presented their own unique considerations. Historic districts required tunnels to avoid damaging culturally significant sites. Environmental groups were vocal, demanding rigorous impact assessments. Elon personally addressed these concerns by commissioning independent environmental studies and incorporating green technologies into tunnel design, including energy-efficient lighting and regenerative braking systems that fed power back into the grid. Each successful launch was celebrated as a milestone in global cooperation and innovation. Elon's vision of a world connected beneath the surface began to take shape. The media spotlight intensified, with documentaries and international conferences highlighting the transformative potential. Yet, global expansion also meant confronting geopolitical complexities. Trade restrictions, regulatory variations, and cultural skepticism posed ongoing hurdles. Elon traveled frequently, building partnerships with local businesses and governments, listening closely to voices both supportive and critical. He believed respect and collaboration were the keys to sustainable success. On the technical front, Hermes, the AI system, evolved to handle multilingual communication and adapt to diverse traffic patterns and infrastructure layouts. The AI learned to recognize regional driving behaviors, weather conditions, and emergency protocols, demonstrating an unprecedented level of customization and flexibility. The global rollout was not without setbacks. Political unrest in some regions delayed projects. Supply chain disruptions challenged manufacturing schedules. A data breach in a minor pilot city prompted a comprehensive review of cybersecurity measures. Each obstacle was met with renewed commitment and innovative problem-solving. The narrative of progress remained compelling. Social impact stories multiplied worldwide. In Tokyo, a young professional shared how the tunnels allowed her to reclaim hours she had lost to endless subway transfers. In São Paulo, local entrepreneurs credited the improved mobility with new business opportunities. In Cape Town, reduced traffic had a measurable effect on air quality and public health. These stories underscored the universal human desire for freedom and connection. Elon often reflected on the enormity of the mission. What began as a radical idea in Texas had grown into a global movement. The breakthrough wasn't simply about ending traffic, it was about building bridges between cultures, advancing sustainability, and creating shared hope for the future. As the tunnels stretched beneath cities on every continent, Elon envisioned a time when distance would no longer divide communities, and the daily grind of traffic would become a relic of the past. The journey was far from over, but the path forward was illuminated by the possibilities their breakthrough had unleashed, a future where innovation and humanity traveled side by side, connected in a vast, underground web of progress. As the tunnel system's global footprint expanded and public enthusiasm grew, Elon found himself navigating an increasingly complex political landscape. What started as a technological challenge had evolved into a high-stakes battle for power, influence, and public perception. Governments, lobbying groups, and entrenched interests reacted in varied ways, some embracing the promise of progress, others resisting disruption to the status quo. In Washington, D.C., the tunnel project became a lightning rod in political debates. Traditional transportation industries, including major automotive manufacturers and highway construction contractors, viewed the breakthrough as a threat to their long-standing dominance. Lobbyists mounted campaigns questioning the tunnel's safety, economic viability, and long-term impact on jobs. Politicians, attuned to their constituencies and donors, demanded rigorous oversight and accountability. Elon understood the stakes. Behind closed doors, he met with senators and representatives, sharing data, demonstrations, and projections. He framed the tunnels not as a threat but as an opportunity to modernize infrastructure, create new industries, and improve quality of life. Still, skepticism lingered. Some lawmakers voiced concerns about the tunnel's impact on existing public transit systems and the potential for corporate overreach. Regional politics complicated matters further. State and city governments sometimes clashed over regulatory authority and funding priorities. Elon's team worked to build coalitions, emphasizing collaboration and shared goals rather than competition. Internationally, the political battles were no less intense. In Europe, where public transit was deeply ingrained and heavily subsidized, unions and political parties challenged the tunnel's expansion, fearing job losses and privatization of essential services. Negotiations were delicate, requiring compromises and assurances of worker protections and public benefit. In rapidly developing countries, political instability and corruption posed risks. Elon's team implemented stringent ethical guidelines and transparency measures to maintain integrity, often working with international watchdogs and NGOs to ensure compliance. Media campaigns intensified, both supporting and opposing the tunnels. Elon became a frequent guest on news programs, panel discussions, and political forums, skillfully defending the project while acknowledging valid criticisms. He stressed that innovation was never without challenges but that the potential benefits were too great to ignore. Internally, the political battles tested Elon's leadership. Pressure from investors, board members, and public opinion weighed heavily. Some executives pushed for faster rollouts despite unresolved regulatory hurdles, while others advocated caution. Elon balanced these voices with his own conviction and the council of trusted advisors, including Sarah, whose perspective grounded him amid the storm. In one pivotal moment, a proposed federal bill sought to impose strict regulations on the tunnel project, threatening significant delays and budget overruns. Elon mobilized his team to engage in advocacy, building alliances with community leaders, scientists, and environmentalists who supported the innovation. Through coordinated lobbying and public outreach, they managed to amend the bill, introducing provisions that balanced safety with innovation-friendly policies. The victory was hard-won but set a precedent for future cooperation between government and industry. Meanwhile, grassroots movements emerged on both sides of the debate. Citizen groups advocating for sustainable, equitable transportation aligned with the tunnel project, organizing rallies, petitions, and educational campaigns. Opposing groups focused on caution, demanding transparency and accountability. Elon respected these voices, often meeting with activists to hear their concerns and explore solutions. He believed true progress required dialogue, not division. The political battles also brought to light deeper questions about technology's role in society. Debates over data privacy, AI ethics, and corporate influence prompted Elon and his team to establish independent oversight committees and adopt rigorous transparency standards. These measures helped build trust but also revealed the ongoing challenges of balancing innovation with public accountability. Through it all, Elon remained steadfast in his vision, tempered by a growing understanding of the complexities beyond engineering. The tunnel breakthrough was as much a social and political revolution as a technological one. It required navigating power structures, building consensus, and sometimes making difficult compromises. The battles were taxing, but the stakes were too high to retreat. As cities continued to adopt the tunnels and public opinion shifted toward acceptance, Elon found moments of quiet reflection. He recalled the early days, the excitement of invention, the thrill of discovery, and now faced the sobering reality that real change demanded resilience beyond the laboratory. In the end, the political struggles underscored a fundamental truth: progress was never linear. It was messy, contested, and often unpredictable. But with vision, courage, and collaboration, breakthroughs could overcome resistance and reshape the future. For Elon, the journey was far from over. The tunnels were no longer just a solution to traffic, they were a test of humanity's capacity to embrace change, confront fears, and build a better world beneath the surface. Behind every groundbreaking innovation lies a story of sacrifice, and for Elon Musk, the tunnel project was no exception. As the technology advanced and the global rollout accelerated, the personal toll on Elon became increasingly apparent. The pressures of leadership, the relentless pace of innovation, and the weight of public scrutiny converged into a storm that tested not only his resolve but his relationships and well-being. Elon's days stretched endlessly. Meetings filled every hour, spanning time zones as the global expansion demanded his attention at all hours. The constant travel, the need to be present for investors, regulators, engineers, and the media, left little room for rest or personal time. Despite his passion for the project, exhaustion crept in like a shadow. Nights blurred into early mornings, and moments of solitude were rare and fleeting. Friends and family noticed the changes. Sarah, ever his confidant, worried about the strain on their relationship. Their conversations, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, grew terse and strained. Elon's mind was often elsewhere, preoccupied with the next challenge or crisis. The sacrifices extended beyond time. The pressure to maintain a public image as a visionary leader weighed heavily. Social media was a double-edged sword. Praise was often accompanied by criticism and vitriol. Elon learned to develop a thick skin, but moments of doubt and vulnerability occasionally surfaced. More deeply, the tunnel project demanded emotional sacrifices. Decisions that affected thousands sometimes came with unintended consequences, delays that frustrated communities, regulatory battles that drained resources, and compromises that challenged his ideals. The burden of responsibility was immense. One particularly difficult period came when a safety incident occurred during a pilot run in a major city. Though no one was seriously injured, the event triggered intense media scrutiny and governmental investigations. Elon found himself on the defensive, grappling with guilt and the fear of failure. The incident shook the team's morale, but Elon used it as a moment to reinforce the culture of transparency and continuous improvement. Yet, the personal cost extended beyond the professional. Friends reported Elon's rare moments of solitude, a man wrestling with the loneliness that often accompanies singular focus. He missed family gatherings, birthdays, and quiet dinners. His parents expressed concern over his well-being, urging him to find balance. Despite these challenges, Elon found solace in the very work that taxed him. The vision of a future free from the frustrations of traffic, of cities transformed and lives improved, fueled his determination. Small victories. The successful launch of a new tunnel segment, a heartfelt message from a commuter whose life had been changed, served as reminders of why he persevered. The sacrifices were not made in vain. Elon also recognized the importance of support systems. He leaned on Sarah's steady presence and counsel, valuing her perspective more than ever. Together, they worked to carve out moments of connection amid chaos. Elon also fostered a culture within his team that emphasized mental health and well-being, encouraging open conversations about stress and burnout. These efforts were critical in sustaining momentum. Behind the scenes, Elon grappled with questions about legacy and meaning. Was the personal toll worth the potential benefits? Could the breakthrough truly make a lasting difference? These reflections deepened his commitment but also brought moments of introspection and vulnerability. The tunnel project was a marathon, not a sprint. The personal sacrifices illuminated the human cost of innovation, reminding Elon and those around him that even the brightest breakthroughs are forged through perseverance, resilience, and sometimes, profound hardship. As the project moved forward, Elon resolved to honor these sacrifices by striving not only for technological success but for a sustainable balance that allowed him and his team to thrive. The journey was as much about personal growth as it was about transforming cities. In embracing the personal cost, Elon found a deeper appreciation for the complex interplay between ambition, responsibility, and humanity, a lesson that would shape not only the future of the tunnels but the man himself. Just as the tunnel project seemed poised for unstoppable momentum, an unforeseen crisis struck, threatening to unravel years of progress and test Elon's leadership in unprecedented ways. It began subtly. Reports of technical glitches emerged from a newly opened tunnel segment in Los Angeles. Pods occasionally slowed or halted without warning, causing delays and frustration among early adopters. At first, the issues were attributed to minor software bugs, quickly dispatched by Hermes AI updates. But soon, the glitches intensified, and new problems surfaced: communication blackouts between pods, sensor failures, and unexplained power fluctuations. Public confidence wavered. Media headlines shifted from celebration to skepticism, questioning whether the tunnel system was safe or reliable. Elon felt the weight of the moment acutely. The technology that promised to end traffic forever now faced the very real risk of becoming a cautionary tale. Internally, the team mobilized immediately. Engineers and AI specialists worked around the clock to diagnose the failures, combing through mountains of data and running simulations. Elon led daily crisis meetings, demanding transparency and rapid solutions while striving to maintain morale. The challenge was compounded by the crisis complexity. The glitches were not isolated but interconnected, revealing vulnerabilities in the integration of software, hardware, and infrastructure. A root cause remained elusive, frustrating efforts and fueling public anxiety. Meanwhile, regulatory bodies launched formal investigations, imposing temporary restrictions on tunnel operations in affected areas. City officials expressed concerns about safety and accountability, increasing pressure on Elon and his team. Social media buzzed with speculation, some voices fueled by fear and misinformation. To the public, the tunnel breakthrough seemed to falter just when it had promised so much. Amid the turmoil, Elon maintained a calm but resolute front. In public statements, he acknowledged the issues candidly, emphasizing the team's commitment to fixing the problems and prioritizing user safety. Behind closed doors, he worked tirelessly, balancing crisis management with long-term strategy. The crisis also revealed cracks in team dynamics. Stress and fatigue heightened tensions among engineers, executives, and partners. Conflicting opinions on the path forward surfaced, testing Elon's leadership. He relied on trusted advisors to mediate and refocus efforts, reminding everyone of the mission's importance and the value of collaboration. During this period, Elon received an unexpected message from a former mentor, an engineer who had guided him early in his career. The mentor encouraged Elon to step back briefly, reflect deeply, and consider unconventional solutions. Taking this advice to heart, Elon authorized the creation of a special task force, including outside experts from academia and industry, to bring fresh perspectives. This multidisciplinary team quickly identified a critical flaw: an unexpected interaction between Hermes' adaptive AI and a newly introduced hardware component was causing erratic pod behavior under certain conditions. Addressing the flaw required not only software patches but redesigning key elements of the pod sensor array and communication protocols. The complexity of the fix meant weeks of downtime and significant additional costs. Elon faced tough decisions: delay expansion plans, communicate transparently about setbacks, and absorb financial hits, all under intense scrutiny. But he remained unwavering in his commitment to integrity and safety. As repairs progressed, Elon initiated a comprehensive public outreach campaign. Town halls, live demonstrations, and transparent progress updates helped rebuild trust. Users who had experienced delays were offered compensation and personalized support. The company also enhanced its safety monitoring systems, implementing redundancies and real-time diagnostics to prevent future incidents. Slowly, confidence returned. Early tests of the revamped system showed dramatic improvements. The pods operated smoothly, glitches vanished, and regulatory bodies lifted restrictions. Cities reopened tunnels to the public, celebrating the restored promise of a better commute. For Elon, the crisis was a crucible that deepened his understanding of leadership, innovation, and humility. Breakthroughs were never guaranteed to be flawless; setbacks were part of the journey. What mattered was how challenges were met, with transparency, courage, and an unwavering commitment to the mission. The experience strengthened the team and refined the technology, making it more robust and resilient. It also forged a renewed bond between Elon and the communities he served, built on honesty and shared resolve. As the tunnel project resumed its upward trajectory, Elon carried with him the lessons of the unexpected crisis. He knew future challenges would come, but he was confident in the strength of the team, the technology, and the vision. The breakthrough that could end traffic forever was not just about speed or innovation; it was about resilience, trust, and the enduring power of human ingenuity to overcome the unthinkable. After weathering the unexpected crisis, Elon Musk's tunnel project entered a new phase, one defined by a shifting public perception that moved from doubt and skepticism to widespread enthusiasm and hope. The journey to winning the hearts and minds of everyday commuters was as complex and challenging as the technology itself. Initially, many viewed the tunnels with suspicion. The idea of zipping beneath city streets in driverless pods felt like science fiction, unrealistic or even dangerous. The glitches and delays only deepened fears. Headlines questioned whether this ambitious vision would deliver or become another failed experiment. But Elon and his team recognized that technology alone wouldn't secure success. Public trust was paramount. They launched a multifaceted campaign to engage communities directly, transforming skeptics into advocates. One of the most effective strategies was hosting immersive demonstrations. People were invited to experience rides in the pods firsthand, gaining a tangible sense of safety, comfort, and speed. These events were designed to be transparent and interactive. Engineers answered questions openly, and potential riders could see the rigorous safety protocols in action. Local influencers, city leaders, and everyday commuters shared their experiences on social media, amplifying positive stories. Educational initiatives also played a crucial role. Schools and universities partnered with the project to create workshops and STEM programs, inspiring a new generation to embrace innovation. Public forums and town halls became venues for honest conversations about concerns, privacy, accessibility, environmental impact, and how the project addressed them. These efforts fostered a sense of ownership and community participation. As the tunnels expanded to more cities, early adopters became vocal champions. Stories circulated of people reclaiming hours of their lives previously lost in traffic jams, parents arriving on time for their children's events, workers reducing stress and fatigue, and entrepreneurs accessing new opportunities. These narratives humanized the technology, transforming it from a distant concept into a practical solution with real-life benefits. Media coverage evolved accordingly. Documentaries, news features, and viral videos celebrated the tunnels as a symbol of hope and progress. Elon, once a polarizing figure, was increasingly seen as a visionary dedicated to solving one of humanity's most persistent problems. Yet, the project remained grounded in humility. Feedback mechanisms allowed users to report issues and suggest improvements, reinforcing the idea that the tunnels were a service built for the people, by a community of innovators. This openness further strengthened public confidence. Social media played a dual role. While misinformation and skeptics remained, vibrant online communities emerged, sharing tips, stories, and support. Hashtags promoting safe and responsible use trended regularly. The public began to see the tunnels not just as infrastructure but as a movement, a shared commitment to a better urban future. This enthusiasm translated into political support. Lawmakers cited public backing when approving expansions and funding. Businesses invested in infrastructure around tunnel stations, spurring economic growth. Environmental groups recognized the tunnel's potential to reduce emissions and improve air quality, aligning with broader sustainability goals. For Elon, witnessing this transformation was deeply rewarding. He often reflected on the early days, the doubts and challenges, and marveled at how far the project had come. The public's embrace validated the risks and sacrifices made along the way. But it also inspired renewed ambition, to push the technology further, explore new applications, and continue making cities more livable. This chapter of the tunnel's story underscored a timeless truth: innovation thrives not in isolation but through trust, collaboration, and shared vision. The journey from skepticism to enthusiasm was a testament to the power of persistence, transparency, and genuine connection. As tunnels became a familiar and trusted part of daily life, Elon's breakthrough had achieved something beyond technology. It had ignited hope and reshaped the relationship between people and their cities, promising a future where mobility was not a burden but a source of freedom and possibility. The success of Elon Musk's tunnel breakthrough rippled far beyond the borders of any single city or country, sparking a global transformation in how people lived, worked, and connected. What began as an ambitious experiment to end traffic jams evolved into a catalyst for urban reinvention, environmental renewal, and social change on a scale few had anticipated. As tunnels sprawled beneath megacities from New York to Tokyo, the effects were tangible and profound. Commutes that once consumed hours shrank to minutes, freeing up time for families, hobbies, and rest. The air, once thick with smog from idling cars, cleared noticeably, improving public health and reducing respiratory illnesses. Economies shifted as productivity increased and new business districts emerged around tunnel hubs, attracting investment and innovation. Urban planners and architects embraced the tunnels as a foundational element for reimagining city design. Streets formerly choked with traffic were transformed into pedestrian-friendly green spaces, parks, and bike lanes. The reduction in surface traffic allowed cities to reclaim their cores for people, fostering vibrant communities and improved quality of life. Socially, the tunnels helped bridge divides. Previously isolated neighborhoods gained greater access to jobs, education, and cultural centers, promoting equity and inclusivity. Public transit systems integrated seamlessly with the tunnel network, creating multimodal options that were efficient and accessible to all. Environmentally, the tunnels became a critical tool in combating climate change. By drastically reducing the number of combustion engine vehicles on surface roads, carbon emissions plummeted. Cities reported measurable improvements in air and water quality, wildlife habitats rebounded, and urban heat islands cooled. These benefits resonated globally as more countries adopted similar technologies, inspired by Elon's pioneering efforts. The tunnels also spurred advancements in related fields: renewable energy integration, AI-driven traffic management, and smart city infrastructure, all converging to create ecosystems that were sustainable, adaptive, and resilient. Economically, the shift was transformative. Entire industries evolved to support the new mode of transportation, from manufacturing specialized pods and tunnel maintenance robots to developing software platforms and data analytics services. New jobs emerged in sectors previously unimaginable, offsetting earlier fears of job losses. Governments adjusted policies and training programs to equip workforces for the changing landscape. Elon's vision had ignited a chain reaction that redefined opportunity and prosperity. Globally, cities formed networks to share data, strategies, and innovations, accelerating progress and fostering cooperation. International summits dedicated to sustainable urban mobility became regular events, where leaders and innovators gathered to exchange ideas inspired by the tunnel revolution. The project's global footprint also raised important discussions about governance, ethics, and equity in technology deployment. Elon and his team advocated for frameworks that ensured benefits were distributed fairly and that vulnerable communities were not left behind. These efforts underscored the broader mission, not just to innovate but to uplift humanity. On a personal level, Elon reflected on the enormity of what had been achieved. The tunnels were no longer just a solution to traffic, they had become a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when vision met perseverance and compassion. The global impact was a testament to the power of ideas to transcend boundaries and create lasting change. Yet, Elon knew the journey was ongoing. New challenges awaited: scaling technology responsibly, adapting to diverse cultural contexts, and anticipating future needs in a rapidly evolving world. But with each city transformed and each life improved, the promise of the breakthrough shone brighter. The global impact of Elon Musk's latest breakthrough was a vivid illustration of hope realized, a future where innovation served people and planet alike, and where the dream of seamless, sustainable mobility was no longer a distant vision but a living reality. Just when Elon Musk's tunnel breakthrough seemed destined to dominate the future of urban transportation, an unexpected rival emerged, shaking the landscape and challenging the status quo. This new player wasn't a large corporation with decades of experience or a government agency, but a nimble startup founded by a former Tesla engineer named Maya Collins. Maya had quietly developed a radically different approach to solving traffic, an innovative system of modular, above-ground transit pods that could dynamically reconfigure routes in real time using advanced AI and magnetic levitation technology. Unlike Elon's subterranean tunnels, Maya's system promised easier installation, lower upfront costs, and rapid scalability in cities where underground construction was prohibitively difficult or politically fraught. The announcement sent shockwaves through the tech and transportation worlds. Industry insiders debated whether Maya's technology was a genuine breakthrough or a risky novelty. Elon's team watched carefully, initially dismissing the rival as niche and geographically limited. But as pilot programs rolled out in several mid-sized cities, the results were undeniable. Maya's pods demonstrated impressive efficiency, smooth rides, and enthusiastic public adoption. Social media buzzed with comparisons and debates: tunnel versus pod, underground versus above ground, legacy versus disruptor. Investors took notice, funneling capital into Maya's company, dubbed Aerolink, accelerating its growth and reach. Elon, never one to ignore competition, took the challenge seriously. He convened his top engineers and strategists to analyze Aerolink's technology and market approach. The insights were clear: while the tunnel system excelled in densely populated urban cores, Aerolink's pods offered flexibility and cost advantages in sprawling or older cities. Both systems had unique strengths, and competition could drive innovation for the entire industry. Rather than engage in a fierce battle, Elon sought collaboration possibilities, recognizing that the future of mobility might not be one-size-fits-all. The two companies began informal talks exploring integration opportunities: Imagine tunnels connecting key city centers while Aerolink pods managed flexible last-mile routes above ground. The public responded enthusiastically to the prospect of complementary systems working together, broadening access and convenience. However, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some within Elon's camp feared collaboration might dilute the brand or cede technological leadership. Meanwhile, Aerolink's rapid rise fueled anxieties about being overshadowed by Tesla's resources and fame. The rivalry spurred both sides to accelerate development cycles, pushing the boundaries of AI, safety features, and user experience. The competition invigorated the industry, attracting fresh talent and renewed government interest. Regulatory agencies adapted quickly, crafting frameworks to accommodate diverse technologies while ensuring public safety and fairness. Maya and Elon eventually met at a global innovation summit, a pivotal moment symbolizing the crossroads of competition and cooperation. Their conversation was candid, respectful, and visionary. They shared insights on overcoming infrastructure challenges, ethical AI use, and the imperative of equitable access. The dialogue laid the groundwork for future partnerships and a more inclusive approach to mobility solutions. The rivalry also sparked public fascination. Media portrayed the story as a classic battle of innovators, a modern-day rivalry with stakes that transcended business to touch the lives of millions. Debates flourished online and offline, driving awareness and engagement with sustainable transportation. Ultimately, the unexpected rival redefined the tunnel project's trajectory. It pushed Elon and his team to innovate faster, refine their user experience, and deepen their commitment to collaboration over competition. The presence of a worthy challenger reaffirmed that progress often emerges not from isolation but from dynamic interplay among bold ideas. As the mobility landscape evolved, Elon embraced this new reality, confident that the true breakthrough wasn't a single technology but a collective movement toward smarter, greener, and more accessible urban transportation. The unexpected rival was not a threat to be feared but a catalyst to be welcomed, fueling a future where innovation thrived through diversity, cooperation, and shared vision. As the sun set over the skyline of a transformed city, Elon Musk stood at the edge of one of the gleaming tunnel entrances, reflecting on a journey that had redefined not only urban transportation but the very way people experienced their daily lives. What began as a bold idea to end traffic forever had blossomed into a global movement, one that blended technology, humanity, and hope into a new era of mobility. The challenges had been immense. Technical hurdles, public skepticism, personal sacrifices, and unexpected rivals all tested Elon's resolve. Yet, through each trial, he had grown, not just as an innovator but as a leader deeply attuned to the broader implications of his work. The breakthrough was never just about speed or efficiency, it was about connection, connecting people to their dreams, to each other, and to a more sustainable future. Walking through the bustling terminal, Elon observed commuters, families, workers, students, moving effortlessly through pods that hummed with quiet precision. The air was cleaner, the streets above freer, and the city pulsing with new energy. He saw the faces of people who had reclaimed precious time once lost to gridlock, now investing it in what mattered most. Amid these reflections, Elon's thoughts turned to the lessons learned along the way. He understood now that innovation was a living process, one that demanded resilience, humility, and an unwavering commitment to serve others. The tunnel project was as much a story of human perseverance as it was of technological triumph. He remembered the personal costs, the late nights, the strains on relationships, the moments of doubt. Those sacrifices had shaped him, deepening his empathy and sharpening his vision. They had taught him the value of balance and the importance of nurturing both the mind and the soul. Looking ahead, Elon saw a horizon filled with possibilities. The tunnel breakthrough was a foundation, not a final destination. New technologies, new partnerships, and new challenges awaited. But the spirit that had driven the journey, the spirit of curiosity, courage, and compassion, would continue to guide him. The story of the tunnel project was far from over. It was a living testament to what could be achieved when people dared to dream big and work together to turn those dreams into reality. As Elon stepped outside into the warm evening, he paused to address a crowd gathered for the tunnel's anniversary celebration. His voice carried the weight of experience and the lightness of hope. Life is full of surprises, but love and determination will always lead the way. This breakthrough is proof that when we come together with purpose and heart, we can overcome any obstacle and build a better future for all. The audience erupted in applause, a collective celebration of a journey that had touched millions of lives. Elon smiled, knowing that the true breakthrough was not just in technology but in the enduring human spirit that made progress possible. The tunnels beneath the city were more than infrastructure, they were pathways to possibility, corridors of hope, and symbols of what humanity could accomplish when united by vision and love. And so, as a new era of urban mobility dawned, Elon Musk's latest breakthrough stood as a beacon, a reminder that the road ahead, no matter how challenging, was always open for those willing to take the first step. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?